We start? Yeah, everything good? Yeah, the light is okay. Yes, greetings my brothers and sisters. Yours truly, Chrissy B. Motep. I'm here once again today to speak to you about Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Today is the 8th of May 2020. It's Friday and it's a bank holiday. Never known a bank holiday on a Friday, but because they're celebrating VA Day, they're celebrating the 75 years of the soldiers, Britain's war in 1945 when Britain fought in World War II. So now today is a day where they're setting aside to celebrate and to remember those soldiers who fought in the war, which is VA Day. And there was a lot of black African soldiers who also fought in the war, but obviously those soldiers have been forgotten about, and there's posts all over Facebook now remembering the black African soldiers who actually fought in the Second World War. So that's why there's a bank holiday, because they're remembering VE Day and the soldiers that fought in that war, of course, the Second World War in the 1940s. And it's fitting we're here to talk about Marcus Mosiah Garvey today, because Marcus Garvey was a man who really, he wasn't a man of war, but he was a man of peace, but he was a man of organization. And, for those of you who follow me on Facebook and other social media, you know that I post a lot about Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey wanted Africans, both in the diaspora and in the motherland, to unite and to come together for one common goal, and that common goal was to secure Africa and to dominate and to look after Africa, and at the same time build up our souls and our economy, and of course be pro-black in every aspect. Marcus Garvey was a very, very, very intelligent man. He went around the Americas. He set up the UNIA in the 1914, the Universal Improvement Association, the Universal Improvement Negro Association, and he did that with the help of his wife, of course, Amy Yates Garvey. And funny enough, Marcus Garvey married twice, and both of his wives were called Amy. The first wife was Amy Ashford Garvey, and the second wife was Amy Yates Garvey. And it was actually Amy Yates Garvey who actually assisted the writing of Philosophies and Opinions in Marcus Garvey's best-selling book. The two big books from Marcus Garvey was Race First, which was written by Dr. Tony Martin. That was some years after he passed away. That was to commemorate the 100 years of Marcus Garvey. So that was done in 1987, which was 100 years after, because Marcus Garvey was born in 1887. But Philosophies and Opinions was written in the 1920s, and that was done by his wife, of course, Amy Yates Garvey. And in there it talks about why he set up the UNIA, because he said that he wanted blacks to have an establishment. He wanted them to have a body. He said he went to the Americas and he saw how the blacks there were being treated by the Hispanics, by the Hispanics were the majority, because the blacks who came to the Americas, like the Caribbean and like of America, were slaves taken from mostly Western Africa, but also certain parts of Southern Africa and Eastern Africa. I know in Brazil, when the Portuguese went to Brazil and when they colonized Brazil, because obviously that's why Brazil speaks Portuguese, because the Portuguese slave masters went there, and so with them they took many of the good slaves, say in inverted commas, the ones where they thought were physically imposed and physically strong, mentally strong, because they were going to go, of course, and do some works on the field. They were going to pick cotton and work on the plantation, so they had to be physically fit. And of course, those from the Western African tribes were more physically imposing. So when the Portuguese slave masters went into Western Africa, they brought with them the slaves from Western Africa and some from Eastern Africa, because there's also certain parts of Brazil that a lot of the Eastern African slaves were taken from them, really brought to Brazil. And as a result, that's why Brazil has so many different ethnicities and so many different, you can see how they look physically, and finer noses, finer lips, and so on, taken from Eastern Africa, whereas the ones from Western Africa are more got fuller cheeks and fuller noses and fuller mouths and so on. And as times went on, some of it, they mixed up the indigenous peoples there, because the original people of Brazil was called the Guarani Indians, which were a close relation to the Native Americans and to the Taino peoples, which really come from Jamaica, and the Arawaks also come from Jamaica as well. And so Garvey never liked what he saw, and he said he had to go back and set up an establishment. And that's where the Nation of Islam got their concept from, because Elijah Muhammad, the Right Honourable Elijah Muhammad, was once a Garveyite, and he was part of the UNIA one time. He went there, and he got some indoctrinations from members of the UNIA when Marcus Garvey was there. And he's meant to go and see Marcus Garvey speak, and he did, but he went back, and he wanted his own setup, and so he went and he actually formed, on behalf of Master Farad Muhammad, who was his instructor, went about and we want to set up the first offshoots of the Nation of Islam in the 1930s. But anyway, going back onto Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey wanted an establishment for black people, for them to look up and to wise up, and for them to have something as a basis, because coming out of slavery, because of course Marcus Garvey was heavily inspired by Booker T. Washington, and Booker T. Washington's book, the great book Up From Slavery, which Marcus Garvey read as a youngster, influenced him and inspired him. And of course the trip to the Americas and seeing how blacks were being treated over there, forced this initiative even more. And so that was a wonderful template for us, because without that initiative of setting up the UNIA, it would never have been. We would have been in some dire straits right now. And he set up. It was so fitting, because he set up a school. He set up an etiquette class to groom people to have to sit, how to dress, how to speak, certain mannerisms. It was brilliant. He even had a music school there, because Marcus Garvey was heavily into music, and they had people, the members of the UNAA, who could actually write and compose songs. And I believe Marcus Garvey's wife, Amy Yates Garvey, was also a composer, and so she wrote songs. And I remember hearing the Muta Baruka show, I think it was maybe about a year ago, when Muta Baruka actually played one of Amy Yates Garvey's songs. And this is a side to Garvey and a side to Amy Yates Garvey that you don't really see, but it's there. There's so much to discover, and there's so much to tap into, and there's so much to learn. But anyway, putting that aside, we had this wonderful establishment, and at a time when there was no internet, there was no radio, there was no TV, it was able to entice over, I've heard it was 10 million people, but I've also heard it was 5 million people, and I've also heard it was 2 million people. So just say anything between 2 to 10 million people were enticed by all over the world, not just in America, not just in the Caribbean, and not just in Africa, but all over the world. People took notice of Marcus Garvey, and they wanted to be a part of this organization, and people traveled from other parts of the world to come to be a member of the UNIA. And he reached so many people, he reached so many black people, other parts of the world. But really, this was really a black initiative. But you had other people, because there was even white members of the UNIA, because they liked what Garvey was talking about. And there was white people who were against slavery. Their forefathers enslaving black people, they were totally against it. And so as a result, they sided with Garvey, and they said, okay then, we're going to be a part of this, because we love this initiative. And they invested money in it as well. A lot of the money came from blacks, because blacks invested in the UNIA and the setting up of it as well. And they donated monies, but also whites did as well. And they were inside the establishment. But Garvey always went around with his own people. If you see pictures of Garvey now, back in those days, you're talking the 20s, the 10s, the 20s, and the 30s. Because he died in 1940. So the majority of the pictures you see are from the 10s, 20s, and the 30s. And he went around mostly with his own men, people of colour, and he rode in cars and carts. He was ahead of his time, And the literary works, the literary writing, the scholarly writings that he left is testament. It's absolute testament to his thinking ability and to his intellectual talent. He had a great oratory skills. He could speak in front of massive crowds, and when he spoke, he connected with you, and you knew where the movement was going, because it wasn't just mumbo jumbo. It was actually had a direction to it. He knew where he was going. He was focused beyond belief, and he's got 2 sons, and Marcus Jr. and Julian Garvey. Those were his two sons. And at the same time, yeah, these two sons are still members, because the UNA is still going. The UNA is still going, because it doesn't get talked about much, to the same level as, like, say, the Nation of Islam, where the Nation of Islam has always been spoken about so often. It's always there. For UNA, it's still there. It's always there, and these two sons are part of it. And the thing is, he got busted out because Marcus Garvey had a rule where, as a black person, you're a member of the UNA, you're not allowed to be a member of the UNA, and you've got to just looking at the time, so, and you've got to, because I've got to do some cooking, you've got a white partner, and because his son had a white partner, he was ousted from the organisation. You see, I believe it's Marcus Jr. I'm not sure if it's Julian. I'd have to, I think it's. I'd have to check it out and come back again and confirm. But I think it's Marcus Jr. who was married to a white woman, and then because of that, he wasn't allowed inside the organisation. But Marcus Garvey's legacy is immense, because we have to listen to him in this time, because all this with COVID-19 and with the lockdown, with they wanted to go to Africa and to inject Africans with vaccines, and don't forget, they're saying that the vaccine is going to take another year to create. Yet they want to go and try use Africans as guinea pigs and go into Africa and try to inject vaccines which are not been authorized on Africans. You've got to really, really say that as black people, we've got to be on our guard, we've got to be focused, and we've got to know what it is. And Garvey, if he was around today, he would definitely instruct us not to take the vaccines, but to focus solely on what, is going on around us. And at the same time, the initiatives that Garvey partaked in, the shipping line was a brilliant idea, and even though it never got off the ground, the intent was there. At least he had that intent to set up those shipping lines, and the Black Star Line as well, which, of course, the great Kwame Nkrumah from Africa, from Ghana, used Garvey's Black Star and inserted it into the Union Jack. When Ghana got independence in 1957, he inserted the Black Star into the Union Jack of Ghana as a tribute to Marcus Garvey, because Kwame Nkrumah was an advocate for Marcus Garvey, because he read Marcus Garvey, he read about him, and he was really, really for Garvey. You could say he was a Garveyite, a bit like now Robert Mugabe, who sadly passed away last year. Robert Mugabe was also a Garveyite, because that's why when they wanted to, when the British wanted to take land, from Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe said no, and he put his foot down, and that's why he's seen as a villain and as a devil, because he never took the bait from any white man, from any European. He never took the bait. He said, no, this land is for my people. And at first, he used to button up to the Europe, to the Caucasian. If the Caucasian said to him, jump, he would say, how high must I jump? But he started to wise up and learn sense and get sense. And as a result of that, this little shift of direction from being in favour of what the white man was telling him to being not in favour of what the white man was saying, was that of running many enemies, because they want the land. And he said no, and this is what Garvey would have definitely done, because Garvey would have said, no, let's claim the land for Africa, because it's our land, we don't want to give it away, this is what we got, this is the one, Africa is a black man's home, it's and black woman's home as well. We must try and maintain it and defend it and keep it, and that's what Mugabe did. And Mugabe is one of the very few African leaders. I know he's dead and gone now, but he was in the modern day, up until he passed away, and up until he was out of office anyway, because he got ousted out, and up until while he was a president, when he was a president of Zimbabwe, he was in the last number of years, say the last 20 odd years, maybe 30 odd years. The first years he wasn't, but eventually he started to learn sense, and then he started to wise up, and then he started to become a Garveyite. And that's the only way to do it, is to be a Garveyite, and so that's why we have to stay close to Marcus Garvey in this time. We've got to read these books, the universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. You know, I don't know if you heard me when I spoke earlier. I sounded a bit muffled, so I do apologize for that. And that's, you know, what Marcus Garvey, because sometimes I do speak fast. That's what Marcus Garvey has set up. You know, upon seeing that we didn't really have any bodies, because coming out of slavery, who is, you know, we're not liked already. The white man was never going to set anything up for us. The other races have got their own thing, so what about the black man? What have we got? So that's where he took it upon himself to set up an establishment, and then from there it came the offshoots of the Black Panthers. Black Panthers came in the 60s, and before the Black Panthers you had a civil rights movement, which was of course fronted by the likes of Martin Luther King and others. And then before that you had the Nation of Islam, fronted by, of course, Elijah Muhammad, the Right Honourable Elijah Muhammad, now in the hands of the great Minister Louis Farrakhan, but from the teachings and from the inspiration of Master Farad Muhammad. Master Farad Muhammad instructed Elijah Muhammad to do the things he did, you know, and so on, and he was the chosen one to lead this movement. But he was originally, as I said, originally a Garveyite, the Right Honourable Elijah Muhammad, because he used to be a part of the UNIA. You know, and was there going to listen to what Marcus Garvey's speeches and lectures, and then got the lift and got the idea and got the inspiration to move from there and set up another black organization, which led the people to a better future. You know, as I was saying one time on Facebook, I think it was the other day, I was saying on Facebook about the thing I like about the Nation of Islam is that they're very organized. You know, like the UNIA, they're very organised, they're very, very pro-black, they've got structure, they've got orders, you know, their dietary aspects is brilliant. They don't have one square meal a day, excuse me, 1 square meal a day. You know, the way their attire, they've got a brotherhood and a sisterhood there, they've got various concepts, and even if you don't always agree with them, because even me, some of the things that the Nation of Islam stand for, I don't always agree with, but some of the things I agree with, because I think it's helping black people to at least be better. And of course the teachings, they cover so many ground. You know, they talk about black history, about the history of Islam, they talk about the civil rights movement, the diaspora, the slavery, and other things. You know, they're multifaceted and they're well-rounded, and their lectures, you see when Minister Louis Farrakhan goes up there and speaks, and he connects with you. You know, you can understand where he's coming from. The same with, of course, the one over there, which is, of course, Mr. Brother Leo Muhammad. You know, and they speak to the soul, and they're there for your people. You know, they're there for because they want the people, want black people to kind of rise up and to move up, and to have some structure, and have somebody to fall back on, and it's very, very important. And this all stems from Marcus Garvey's initiative in 1914, setting up the UNIA. So it's very, very important. You see, I'm going to talk about Marcus Garvey some more another time. And this is just a little basic roundup of a few things. I'm going to come back and talk some more about him another time. So once again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, Chris B and Motep. Subscribe to our channel, please. Share it around. Spread the word about Chris B and Motep, his YouTube channel. Subscribe to, my mouth is a bit dry, my friend, I'm missing some words. Yeah, so subscribe to us, share the videos, like the videos, and leave your comments down below. So I'm going to say peace out. Thanks for listening. Take care. Blessed love. Stay safe.